Welcome to Wisdom from the Trenches.
I have the privilege to have Lisa with me. She's from the Canadian Homeschooler and also a homeschool mom. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So as a homeschool mom, you have been my go-to for information, the resources and tools that you provide in your website, like the curriculum checklist. That's an every year resource that I use from your website, as well as how to plan homeschooling. And you have the Canadian history games, you have Lego challenges. So I love it, and I want to share with other new homeschoolers and existing homeschoolers the awesome job that you do.
Thank you.
So you have made your mission to provide a variety of tools and resources to Canadian homeschoolers through your website, the Canadian Homeschooler. You have a Facebook page, you have Instagram, and Pinterest. Am I missing any?
There's a YouTube channel floating around that I hopefully will have more resources coming soon, but
okay.
I'm around.
You are. Okay, so Lisa, what can you tell us about yourself? Not as a homeschool mom or the Canadian teacher, like what is your passion? What gets you going?
Well, it's hard, because sometimes as a homeschool mom who works about homeschooling, that seems to be me, right? That's all I am. Sometimes it feels like that. But I've been learning to be better at spending more time on myself and remembering that I have an identity outside of homeschool mom Lisa and outside of the Canadian homeschooler Lisa. So my secret on the side passion is I love to write, and so I do a lot of fiction writing on the side for fun.
Awesome. I can't wait to read something that you create.
I actually have to finish something. That's the only trick part.
So what motivated you to begin your homeschool journey?
So we started homeschooling when my oldest was at junior kindergarten level. So he was like 3, 4, somewhere in there. And he wasn't ready for school. He was struggling with anxiety, and the idea of being away from me was just too much at the time. It turns out that he's, 16 now and still struggles with some anxiety, but it turns out that was what we needed at the time. That was kind of the push that moved me past just thinking about it to actually doing it. And well, at one time I joked, we'll just keep homeschooling until I lose my mind. And that happened a long time ago. So I don't know what I'm still doing here, but he's now in grade 11 and we're just still chipping away with all the rest of them too.
So do you have a specific method for homeschool?
I call it the lazy mom's way to homeschool. So I do as minimal as possible and let the kids learn a lot on their own. So it sounds lazy, but really what I do is I guess it would technically fall under eclectic style, where we take in bits and pieces of all different kinds of homeschooling methods and kind of just shove them together in a way that works well for our family. And I have to admit that it's changed and morphed over the years. When you have kids, every year is different, every month is different, every day is different. So you just kind of learn to adapt and go with the flow and find what works in the moment.
So how do you think homeschooling has benefited your family as a whole?
So for us, it's been awesome because it's allowed me to be flexible and adaptable, and it's allowed me to focus on what's best for my kids and their fast or slow or their interests, or I've had kids with struggles, and so sometimes we've had to slow things down a lot further than they would be in a typical classroom setting, and I've taken longer to do math than he might be a year behind, but he understands what he's doing now than instead of trying to shove through, for example. And the other really cool thing is that because my husband works in the golf industry, he's home in the winter time, and so the homeschooling has allowed us to be able to take breaks in the winter so we can spend more time together as a family instead of the typical break in the summer when my husband's gone 60 to 70 hours a week. So it's really great for us to be able to be so fluid that we can choose when we want to be off instead of having to follow a system that's already pre-created for us.
You can adapt it to what you need.
Exactly. Yep. I think that's the main thing about homeschooling, right?
Yeah.
Freedom and adaptability is probably the major benefits for all of us if we actually take advantage of it, right?
Exactly, yeah. So what motivated you as a mom to help other moms by creating the Canadian Homeschooler?
All right, so as I said, we started our journey in JK, and at the time, my two of my sister-in-laws, I have a whole bunch of sister-in-laws, but the two at the time, they had kids and they were homeschooling already. And so I just did what they did because that was the easy solution, right? but it was an American boxed set curriculum. And after that 1 year of having my child color a lot of American flags, I decided that I really wanted to look for Canadian resources. And so that started me with the website. And I figured if I was looking for Canadian stuff, it was a good chance that other people were looking for Canadian stuff too. And I figured I could just make a place to put it all. And that was 10 years ago. And here we are now. And from there, it's grown exponentially from just sharing resources I found to making resources that I made myself. And then all the other things that I've pieced together out of that as well. But that was my motivation, is I mostly, if I was looking for something, other people were probably looking for something too.
So when you're home and you're working and you're homeschooling at the same time, how do you manage to balance that?
So I have a saying, and the saying is that the idea of balance is a myth. It's totally a myth. You can't balance everything. You're never going to have that perfectly equal scale. The reality is you have to pick a priority in the moment of what's important right now. And so in my house, it depends on the season and the time. So for example, this past month has been a very crazy month with a lot of events that I've done and a lot of work that I've started promoting and sharing. Like I finished my book and I had to share it with them. So this month has been a very heavy work month, and my kids kind of got not neglected, but more left to their own devices more than normal, right? But during the typical school year, the main thing that I found that's most successful is using time blocking, where I have intentionally set chunks of time out for things. So I get up in the morning, and the first thing that I do in the day is my period of time to work. And then so the kids know morning is mom's work time, and I work until about 9. So I get up anywhere between 5 and 6, and I work until 9. And then it's school time for a block between 9 and 12 approximately. So we do our school and our chores, and then we have lunch, and then the afternoon we do all of our other things that we're going to do. Or if I have more work to do, the kids have a lot more freedom and they just go play. And we're a pretty laid back family anyways. The kids play, they do their computer games, that kind of stuff. And then in the evening, it's my time with my husband. We watch TV, we play video games together, or whatever. So time blocking is how I manage to do most of my work. So that way I know in my head, I have a mindset of what exactly I should be or I want to be doing during this chunk of time. And it's a lot easier if I'm interrupted 73 times. If I know that this is work time right now, at least I know that if I'm interrupted, I'm going to go right back and continue the work that I'm working on instead of wandering off to find something else to do, if that makes any sense at all. So see, it can be hard to make all those pieces fit together, and it's okay. And I find a lot of times, and this is something I've noticed with moms in particular, especially moms who are new to homeschooling and balancing the idea of work as well, is we have this idea that we need to be fully present for our children every minute of the day, and the guilt about focusing on work, or the guilt about spending time for ourselves, or the guilt about it can weigh really heavily on us, right? And the reality is that we don't need to be actively present and engaging our children every 5 minutes, all minutes of the day. It's a really fine thing for us to allow our kids the freedom to have space on their own. And it's okay to leave them to play without structure. And it's okay to be busy doing something else. It's okay to need to rest for a little while. The kids have gotten used to me going, I need to go lie on my face on the pillow for 5 minutes. And they just either sit on me while I'm lying on the couch or asking for food the entire 5 minutes. But they know that I'm free and available if they need me, but it's okay that mom has space for herself. So it's okay that we have all these things in the air, just as long as we understand that we have to choose which ball to catch when we need to catch it. So priority first, what needs to be done in this moment. We can switch our hat fast, here's my work mom hat, now I got to get the mom hat, and then I got to get my work hat back on. It's just about figuring out what in the moment you need to be doing. Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lisa. What has been the most challenging moment, not just as the Canadian homeschooler, but as a mom?
So I have a couple of children with special needs, or mostly attention deficit related stuff. And it's been challenging at times to figure out the needs of my children you know, as a homeschool mom, we come to education with this idea of what it's going to be like. So, okay, we're not going to do school at home, but it's going to look like this, and I want it to feel like this, and I want it. And the kids, unfortunately, because they've got their own personalities and their own needs and their own whatever, it never quite goes as well as the picture in our head, you know. So maybe everyone talks about this idea of curling up on the couch and reading great books with their kids and having these snuggly quality time with our children, right? But for me, I always thought that would be great. Well, no, it didn't work out that way for my kids because they won't sit long enough to sit through a book. So I could be reading and they'd be wandering off to get snacks or punching another sibling, or so the whole like perception of what education needs to look like had to change for me. So that was one. And one of the major problems was that I was trying, my expectations of what education should be like or what homeschool should be like were completely unrealistic for the children that I have. And so there were times where I was trying really hard to force my idea of what it should be like on my kids, and it led to fighting and anger and frustration. And I remember my husband, because he was off in the winter and here's me trying to teach the kids all together, he looks at me and he goes, "What are you doing? This isn't working at all. You're spending your entire time fighting with each other and people are crying." And I remember lying on the floor of my living room, sobbing my eyes out because it was not working. And I'm like, I'm going to have to give this up. I'm going to be the failing homeschool mom who's trying to teach other people how to homeschool. So I got to get my act together here because this isn't working out. And for me, that was like a major change. And I had to completely change how homeschooling worked for us. I had to completely change my plan from having this nice, cozy, everybody together, do homeschool as a group activity to individualized programs for each of the kids, which seemed completely overwhelming because the idea of doing 5 kids independently on a different program each, once we learned how to make that fit with our life, it has been way smoother, so much more peaceful. Let me tell you, we rarely have scream fights now. And it's not just because my kids are older, it's because we've learned how to meet needs where they're at instead of where my ideas are.
It can be challenging, especially when you're trying to find the rhythm and trying to find what actually works for you. There is a lot of trial and errors. And like, how does your homeschool have to shift because of everything just getting close?
The only thing that I see that's different for us is we already have confidence in our education plan. So we know what we're teaching. We've got the resources. We've got the rhythm. We're confident in that. All our extras are gone. And people say all the time, well, what about socialization? So homeschoolers actively search for socialization. That's why it's so many. And that whole concept of why do they call it homeschooling? We're never at home anyways. So we aren't the kind of family that's out all the time because I have so many kids and I can't afford to go to all the awesome things that are available out there. But we do participate in group things. So we belong to a local homeschool group, and we do go on field trips when we can afford to, or something that everyone's able. And my kids are huge gaps. So I've got teenagers and I've got young, like the early years of school, like grade 1, grade 2. So it's a big gap. So it's hard to find field trips that meet everyone's needs, for example. But we do that, and we've taken some classes and things over the years. But for us, it was just mostly that my kids are missing people because they love getting together with all the other kids. They love going to homeschool co-op and hanging out with all the other kids. They miss going to our church group because they love hanging out with all the other kids and doing things. So that's been the hardest part. I mean, we can adapt, and in winter when things get too snowy and we can't go anywhere, we have chunks of time where we don't necessarily go out and see people as we do in the normal season. So we've been okay a little bit, but I've noticed that my teenagers in particular are starting to really wilt because they need to have social interaction. So for the first time in 8 months now, we're having somebody over this week, and they're like, yeah, my kids are cleaning the house willingly, so they must be excited. So but that's just for us, it's mostly been that my kids are missing friends, just like everyone else who's got their kids home, is their kids are missing their friends. And so that's the part that I think in general, that's where we are struggling with the most. People. We need people.
Yeah, I think for what I heard from my other homeschool friends, that's what we're missing the most. I mean, we also have a co-op. We go to our church group, which we haven't seen. We tried to do the Zoom thing with the homeschool with the church group. It lasted like 2 weeks, and the kids were kind of like, this is not my thing. So
That's not the same.
it's not the same. Like, you need the physical contact and everything. So that kind of dispels a huge myth that there has been. What about socialization when it comes to homeschool? I think homeschoolers are most of them are very sociable. Kind of like
Mhm.
my kids can go everywhere and they can talk to somebody from a small child to an adult without feeling intimidated, and they can look at the person's eyes and ask questions. And I think that that's pretty cool. That comes with homeschooling, but that has been affected in a huge part with this pandemic.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing the struggle. So that most of us are having it. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Um, so what would your advice would be for parents who are beginning to homeschool?
So the one motto I've been trying to really put out in the world right now is no fear. That's the one I'm putting up there, because there's a huge feeling of fear everywhere. And it's not just about the pandemic. It's about everything, and especially about education. So people who are putting their kids in school are making decisions about whether to go to school, whether to do online school, whether to homeschool. There's this feeling of fear, and I feel like it's about failing their kids in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And as if whatever decision they're going to make is going to fail their kids. And I've really been trying to encourage people to change their mindset. That instead of feeling about failure or fear, it's more about you are choosing the best decision for your child with the information you have. And whatever decision you have, go forth with no fear, because it's the best choice that you have right now. And also the idea that this is not like the end of everything. If you make this decision to homeschool today, it's not set in stone. You're not signing your life away. It's not in blood anywhere. It's just a choice for right now, and it's adaptable. So if it's not working, you can send your child back to school. If you send your kid to school and it's not working, or it's not safe or whatever, you can bring your child home. You can also change your curriculum. You could do nothing this year and your child will not be ruined for the rest of their life. I promise you, because we've had periods of time where school did not happen due to fighting or sickness or family struggles or whatever, and my kids are still alive, still happy. And you know what? Kids learn whether you like it or not. How many swear words have they accidentally picked up just because they heard it somewhere? So they will learn things even if you don't want them to. Okay? I try to say that all the time. Just there's this big picture idea that this is so much more than 1 year of school, and it's not. It absolutely is not. Right now is right now, and that's the only thing you need to worry about. Don't think about college if your child is 5. You're not ruining anything at this point, okay? No fear.
Exactly.
That's my main advice.
Awesome. Thanks. Especially right now that everything changes every day. Like one day we are allowed to do this, next day they go back to that. So yes, I do see the fear, and whenever other parents who are not homeschooling yet have called me or text me or message me, but the fear in them is so big, and I couldn't put it in words until now. You put it in words. It's gonna be okay. Yeah, you don't have to be perfect. We do not need a certificate in teaching. We do not need a high degree in mechanics, in whatever. We just need to love our kids and just sit down and guide them. So I like how you phrased it. That's a really good point. Is there any advice you will have for those who continue to homeschool in between the pandemic going on and also trying to plan a year that is going to be different, like no co-op, no outside lessons like swimming and sports and stuff? How do we?
I guess my advice has been for people, because there are people in the leadership roles who have willingly put themselves in that space. So people like me, and there's tons of people who have been willing to do that. I'm not the only one, but people like me who have willingly put our time and faces out there to help support the community. So if other homeschoolers are feeling overwhelmed by the questions that they're being asked, send them to somebody who's been willing to put a voice up, whether that's in a Facebook group, whether that's in an email, or whatever. If you have somebody who's willing to take that stress or that extra off of you, send them that way. Send them to somebody who's willing to do it. The other thing is you can just say, listen, I really want to help you, but I need some space because I'm still trying to just be open and honest. I think that's really important and set boundaries for what you're able and not able to do. So answering a few questions might be okay, but having somebody in to go through choosing curriculum and trying to help them understand how to run their day to day might be more than you're willing to do. Like answering how it works for my family is a lot easier than trying to tell somebody how to run their own day. And I never do that either, right? Because how do I know what you need? Because it's a lot more impersonal than what I need. We're going to be different families, but just set clear boundaries of what you're okay with and what you think you need to take a break from. So it's the same thing as if somebody is opposing homeschooling, and you have to decide where your limit is about having conversations with somebody. If people are really invading your space, or you're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of people, set boundaries and find solutions to help them outside of those boundaries. So I can't help you pick curriculum, but here's a really great store and they love to support people and help you pick curriculum that's best for you. Try them. Or here's a really great person who's put together a lot of videos on how to homeschool. Go check out their website. Or here's a blog post that I know. Some people have even done things like set autoresponders onto some of their emails or onto their Facebook page, or just a general post that says, lots of people have questions. Here's my recommendations. Get it all out first, so you don't have to have all the before they come to you, right? But and I'd say on a personal level, outside of all that, a really important thing right now is to not let the overwhelm you. And as you mentioned, closing down your Facebook page, I actually had to do that myself. And I put myself in a place where I'm willing to be a helper and a leader in the community if people need it. But I actually had to close my Facebook page for 2 days. I refused I'm totally addicted to social media, and I'm always on there, and I feel my friends joke that really I'm just a Facebook bot. I'm not a real person, I'm just a computer. But I had to turn Facebook off because the overwhelm and anxiety from the general public was giving me anxiety. I was really feeling sick and overwhelmed because people are panicking, and I was starting to pick up that emotional cues from everyone else instead of being able to be rational and logical. And I know the answers to these questions. I can help you if you're willing to listen. We have to give ourselves grace and space and the freedom to say no if we can't handle anymore. And that's very hard to do when our hearts, and every single homeschooler I know has a huge heart to help others succeed and to be successful with their homeschool journey, because we know it's important for our kids, and we love what we do, and we love our kids, and we want to see other people experience that ourselves. But unfortunately, we also have a heart that gives probably more than we're willing to be able. We should, right? And so I think allowing ourselves the right to give ourselves space and boundaries is really important. On a school level, if this year has been a slow start, I was talking with one of my friends, and she goes, I haven't even picked my books yet. And I said, one of the cool things about being a seasoned homeschooler is if you're only starting to put a plan together now, or haven't bought any books yet, we're good. We don't need to worry about it. Whenever the books get here, whenever the plan starts putting together, we can work from there. We don't have to have that pressure of September 3rd or September 8th has to be day one. We can have the freedom to take an extra long summer, or really work on our relationship with our kids, or do nothing, or do something completely different, like a fun unit study, or we are good. So don't feel the pressure of the world right now, panicking about school, pressuring you to panic into worrying about school as well, because you got this, you know what you're doing, just take a break.
So thank you so much for your advice. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I want to invite everybody to really check out the Canadian Homeschooler. You have the curriculum checklist, which you put together beautifully. It's a fantastic resource. She has fantastic resource for history, geography. Oh, I know you have other ones, but those are my favorite.
There's tons of stuff all over the site. If you need something, look for it. I'm sure you'll find something.
Yeah, if it's Canadian, Lisa has it. Lisa's always coming up with new ideas. The community that she's coming up, that's going to be pretty cool, because there's going to be some virtual trips, and she just had your celebration for the 10th anniversary for doing the blog, which was super cool party that you hosted. So Lisa usually has live Facebook as interesting articles that either you write in your blog or that you share. So just check it out, the Canadian Homeschooler. I will add in the Facebook page and in the YouTube channel all the other ways that you can find Lisa, like her website, the Facebook page, the Pinterest, the Instagram, and the YouTube. I hope I'm not missing any.
Oh, you're fine. Wherever one will lead to the other, so we're fine.
She's very connected. She's very open. And I really appreciate that about you, Lisa, the support that you're providing to the community and how open and just bluntly honest you can be. Is really a breath of fresh air. It's what we need. We don't need all these sugar-coated things. That just makes
Homeschooling is real, right? Homeschooling is real. I want to be truthful and honest and let people see the real stuff, not the perfect little Pinterest pictures, because that's just one day and one moment at that moment when they took the picture after they shoved all the stuff out of the way, right? The reality is life is a mess. We're all a mess. We're just doing the best that we can. And that's what I hope that I show people.
Exactly. And you too. You do a great job. So thank you so much, Lisa. We'll keep you updated. And God bless you. Have a nice day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
If you like our video, please like, subscribe, and share. See ya!